space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the USS Adequate. Our ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, to review every Star Trek episode and movie in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where every YouTube show has gone before. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Trekkin Up North. I am your host as ever, Captain Goodwill, and I am joined by a very peculiar entity this evening. He's calling himself Q, but I've never known a Macam Q before. Oh my god, he's doing the Vulcan salute.
Yes. Hello there, Captain Goodwill. Some people call me a misunderstood monster or a cult leader. So yes, I thought it'd be quite apt if I come through as Q. It's Q for cue ball because I am bald, so it references all over the place. But yes, we haven't swore yet, so we're doing well.
Yes, we have not swore. We've passed the 7-second barrier. That's why we have long intros, just so we are covered. So, do you want to usher in the new swear word, or shall I do it?
No, I'll be well behaved as I am a guest, which is so strange. I know when I was on the guest for the Monsters episode, I was like, yes, I can't take over and just talk a lot of plot.
You're in my house now.
Yes, I am Goodwill's bitch today, so that's fine.
Oh God, don't start the fan fiction already. Jeez.
He has the power to mute me, guys.
I have the power. Oh my God! Hello to everybody in the chat. We have got Adam Bailey. We've got the lovely Peaches. We've got Becca in the chat. Hello there, Becca. We've got Beth. What cereal has she got this week? Only Beth knows. And everyone else who is watching, don't forget to click that like button below. And if you are not a subscriber of Nerdy Up North already, what are you doing?
What's wrong with you? Why are you here?
What he said. Click that subscription button, flick that old bell of ours so you get an update on every time we upload a video, because trust me, the momentum we've got at the moment, it's going to be every goddamn hour that we upload a video, because we just won't stop.
I'm just going to interrupt here because something looks a bit different about you today, Goodwill. Captain Goodwill, sorry.
I don't know what you mean.
You're looking not as frosty as normal. You're looking a little bit more Auburn, shall we say. The tips, what the fuck has happened to the tips? What's happened to your son?
It was hot.
So the frosted tips left because they were hot.
So, funny story about this. I now have thick hair, which is something I never actually had until I left my former workplace due to stress. And caffeine shampoo works, everybody, because now my hair is super thick, but it doesn't work in the summer. So the frosted tips were plentiful, but very, very thick. So I was hot all the goddamn time. So,
I think you're giving off Will Wheaton vibes at the moment now.
Do you think?
Yes.
Do you think?
Yes, young Will. So that I think I want to demote you. You're no longer captain. You're an ensign now.
Well, I went to Mr. Mott, the barber. That's a deep cut for TNG fans. I went to Mr. Mott down in the barber in the Adequate, and he just said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, have you got a fly mower?" And he said, "I've got a fly mower." I said, "Well, buzz cut me, son." And yeah, there are remnants, as you can probably see. Where's the camera?
I can see where your hairline's disappearing as well there. So
wow, okay, that's. Bold of you to say that, but yeah. So
game recognises game.
Game
shall we
recognises
say, yes.
it. Yeah. This is you can probably see my scar. I've got a Harry Potter scar, deep cut for another franchise there as well. Yeah.
He's the chosen one. He's the one to take us to the new place.
I got this scar 11 years ago when a chav threw me into a set of steel shelves in a warehouse.
All right.
During a test for the Tesco warehouse, shouts out to the Tesco warehouse, and I cut my head open because he was having a fight with someone else, and I was in the way, and he just decided, oh, I'm just going to yeet this fella straight.
So you weren't even trying to like break it up. You weren't being like, oh, I'm Goodwill, I'm a superhero, I can stop everything.
I was doing my job. I was stacking those cages, and no, I just got yeeted. So yeah, Goodwill sort out your hair. I'm trying to. It will be frosted in 2 months' time before I bon voyage to the land of Americans and cheeseburgers. So,
One day I will shave Goodwill's head. Don't worry, it will happen.
no, you won't. So anyway, how has your week been, Paul? Because it has been a busy old week for Nerdy Up North, hasn't it?
Yes, we have been fighting back lawsuit claims for trying to blind the audience at SunnyCon
Don't know what you mean, fella.
dodgy throws by limp-wristed gimps. But yes,
What a thing to call Jake.
but yes, we had a marvelous turn and like a brilliant time at SunnyCon where we actually main staged a con as Nerdy Up North.
That's
now,
crazy.
take that in for a second. Just take that in.
That's insane.
Where we've come from and where we are now to do a main stage at like one of the most high-profile anime cons in the UK.
Yeah.
And which seated about 600. I'm not saying 600 people there, but there was I would say a good 150, 180 people.
Oh, there was more than that.
Sat and listened to us talk shit. Then we attacked them with Pokemon cards, which went better.
Well, the law. I'm now the star pitcher for the Major League Baseball, but the laws of aerodynamics and thermodynamics were not on my side that day.
Yes,
and yeah, people were injured.
But the person who was injured, we made sure we put them backstage. We didn't give them a kicking. Put them backstage, made sure they were all right, looked after them.
Yeah.
Were very professional. Goodwill beat himself up for a few days. Because it was Goodwill who attacked. It was Goodwill who can't throw for toffee.
No, I can. There was a downdraft. Okay, I'm blaming
have a live demonstration on how you threw, please. I really want to see this. Go on. Right. So yes. Yeet. But yes. Other than that, we just finished putting the episode together for Monsters Up North, which goes live on Monday. Which is a very good episode, and we do have a special guest on there, creature from the Black Tattoo, I think. Like I said, he's very well known in the horror community, and Sam and Dan, like I say, had a blast with him as well. We have tomorrow, you lucky nerds, I'm surprised you're not sick of the sight of us by now. So tomorrow we are going to be watching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and we are going to be rushing home. Well, say rushing, it'll take Goodwill about 3 hours to get home from Bolden to far off across the galaxy to your red car.
Transporters.
Beam me up, Scotty. So yes. But yes, so we will be doing a review of that tomorrow, and then we have the Only Sunny in Philadelphia podcast, which is going to go off the fucking rails. That's just not going to think.
It's got to be.
And yes, I wish I was as fabulous as Graeme was at SunnyCon, and he was the highlight for everyone. Like, I've never seen anyone get an applause walking just on stage as Graeme did. I was very jealous.
So Science Officer Synoiz is... I should explain. Science Officer Synoiz is currently working with Section 31 on an undisclosed mission. That's why he's not here this week. We send all of our love to Graeme, as usual. We absolutely adore him here on The Adequate and at Nerdy Up North. He attended SunnyCon. I mean, anyone who attends a convention will know that if it's mild outside, it is like the Sahara Desert on steroids inside a convention. And it was, I would say, warm at St. James's Park, which is an understatement.
I was very moist.
Very
moist.
Yes, there was. I was going to wear this uniform, guys, and I thought, no.
You would have died.
Our friend, our very close friend of Nerdy Up North, James, came down with his partner from Edinburgh, who wore this very uniform. Bless his little cotton socks, he looked uncomfortable. I was in...
It was just because he was standing next to you, to be fair. So.
Well, of course, yes. But I've got a phaser if you get too saucy, Paul. That's all I'm going to say. But he came down in the tube, and it was
Set
warm.
Phasers to fun.
Set phasers to stunning. So it was warm, and Synoiz attended in full drag, in a full velvet dress because he is the Velvet Snatch.
He was a voice snatch that day.
He was a damp snatch. That's all I'm going to say. It was wonderful. He got recognition. Also, big shout out to Baron LeVay, who was there as well. Absolutely love you, Baron. Fantastic to see you in person. But Graeme turned up, and how he did not turn into a puddle of goo by the end of that. But the one thing I need to say to everyone, we were backstage just before we were going to go on, and someone came up to Sinois and said, "Oh my God, are you part of the talent contest?" To which Sinois went, No, I'm untalented. And it was just wonderful. I was in stitches, but he got a round of applause when he came up the disabled ramp onto the stage. But huge shout out to Sinois. You are missed. Hopefully Section 31 will release you with due here. Spectrum Sanctorum is in the chat. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, because he is in New Jersey, New York City. Hello, Joe.
New Jersey.
Oh,
see how many Americans I can offend with me bad accents there.
Yeah.
Before we get started though, because I know most of the Discord group is in there, and I know we've sent them messages, but I just want to do a live shout and say thank you so much for your support last Sunday.
Yeah.
Everyone was there. I don't think you'll ever know how much it'll mean to us that you did show that support and you were there, and not only that, you took part, you got into it, and we, like I say, do have a laugh and we do take the piss a lot, but yous do have a very special place in my heart. So that's the soppy shit out of the way there. Now let's talk about fucking Star Trek.
You are affectionately known as the Lovelies.
The Lovelies.
You are the Lovelies. Anyone in the Discord, you are my Lovelies. Anyone who follows me on Twitter, you are my Lovelies. Apparently Goodwill's harem is taken, so you are going to be called the Lovelies. Spectrum Sanctorum, yeah, Goodwill, I'm going to Vegas, which is going to be 38 to 40 degrees that week. Joe, I'm absolutely devastated I didn't book for August instead of September so I could be at Star Trek Las Vegas. 2, as a ginger, when it gets to 40 degrees, flames start appearing. So
it's like that X-Files episode about spontaneous combustion that happened. That's what happens to Goodwill if he goes in the heat.
Oh yeah, I explode. I have to reacclimatize. It takes. I'm like I won't mention. But I'm like deep sea divers that they have to acclimatize to air pressure. I'm the same with heat. I have to like.
Whoa, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about deep sea air pressure. Way
divers, not submarines. Divers.
Demonetized already.
It's easier going to space.
And it wasn't Graeme this week, it was you.
It's easier going to space than the bottom of the ocean. So let's Adam's in. Adam, the legendary 9.5 foot tall Adam, who does the theme for Trekkin Up North, is in the chat. Hi. Check out his music below. What I will say before I'll get this out of the way now, and then we'll dive into the episode. Last week, Star Trek Prodigy got cancelled by Paramount. We don't know why the decision was taken, but a load of shows, Grease, I think the Pink Ladies series of Grease, that was cancelled, and RuPaul's.
Oh, we like to call like the High School Musical remake type.
Yeah, and RuPaul's Drag Race spin-off was also cancelled.
All right.
There is a petition going round that is being promoted by our friends at Trek Culture. The petition is in the description below, guys. When you are finished watching this episode tonight, please go sign the petition to save Star Trek Prodigy, because not only is it being cancelled, Paramount have removed it from Paramount Plus. So although season 2 is in post-production, we have no idea if it's going to be aired yet or where it's going to be aired. So there is a petition down below. It's already got about 27,000 signatures. So it's quickly gained momentum. Even I think it's fast. It was a faster signing than Star Trek Legacy. Please go sign it.
Do you think Paramount's fucked? Do you think, with all this stuff that's going on?
There is the merger with Showtime, and there is also the fact that they are currently up against the wall financially. And I think that anything that is not performing out of the gate or has a slow uptake is being cut. And unfortunately, Star Trek Prodigy, although brilliant, the first half of the season was slow, but it was brilliant towards the end.
Yeah.
It was slow out of the gate. So I think we need to show Paramount.
So waiting for Disney to buy the fucker out.
This is the thing. This is the thing about Paramount. Paramount watches. Paramount listens to the audience. They study and they watch silently what's going on. They've done it with Legacy. They did it with Strange New Worlds before Strange New Worlds was even a thing. Sign the petition. #Save Star Trek Prodigy. It's all down in the link below. Adam's music is down in the link below as well, because he is an awesome musician. He's done the theme. He's going to be doing more themes as well until he does Faith of the Heart.
Write the theme tune, make the theme tune.
Yeah, he needs to do.
There's a British comedy reference for the Americans. Sorry.
He needs to do Faith of the Heart from Star Trek Enterprise. So Adam, if you are still here, Faith of the Heart from Star Trek Enterprise, I will make everyone love that theme tune. But we are here to review Season 2, Episode 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So let's get into it, because the first reference is in the title of the show, because that is a reference to Macbeth, Act 5. It is a Macbeth reference. But we do see a little bit of a background with this, because the previous episode we had Ad Astra per Aspera to the Stars Through Hardship, where we had Una's trial for being genetically...
Which was a very good episode.
Very, very good episode. Which, if you haven't seen last week's episode with me and Synoise, please check it out, because we went deep with that episode. But it was an episode that deserved to be fully analysed and to go deep with, because it was Star Trek at its best. And this, again, this week is Star Trek at its best. We start off, we do have a little quick summary of what happened in the last episode. We start off with La'an's personal log, going through her day-to-day life as a security officer, a few bickerings, Spock's playing music too loudly, and then we see her sparring with Mbenga. She didn't go, we find out, to Una's sort of welcome back, congratulations for being innocent party, and we're sort of like, right, so La'an is still not over Una lying to her and being genetically altered, because we found out in Season 1, because I know Paul, bless his heart, has binged to be on this episode tonight, and he's binged Season 1.
Can I just say though, thankfully I'm glad I did, because this isn't just a good Star Trek show, it is one of the best TV shows I have seen as well. The cast is one of the best I've seen. Like the lead man, like Captain Pike,
Anson Mount.
Anson Mount, like I say, he is a beautiful man, but he is like he can tell how much fun he is having on this show, and I think that's what's coming across on this. But I do want to make reference to this episode as well. It is just basically remaking Star Trek movie 4. All it was missing was some whales.
the one thing we love about the one thing Trekkies love is a good time travel episode. They are in more or less every single series, I dare say.
I think more in this show than others, though, because that's what a lot of the focus is on, is about time travel and stuff. So again, I know we'll get onto it later on, and like our views on like where the show is going. But yeah, I think time travel is like the major theme of Strange New Worlds.
There is several overarching themes for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. There is the inevitability of Pike, of what he will become. There is the overarching time travel. There is a lot of time travel. Let's get that out of the thing. And there is more to come, as we have seen. And the other one is sort of, it's the Noonien Singh aspect, which we'll get into, but time travel is very much a Strange New Worlds. But it was also in the original series. We had Gary 7, City on the Edge of Forever. We had some of the best episodes of the original series were time travel episodes. We had The Guardian of Forever from the City on the Edge of Forever. So it's very much there, and I think with this episode it was handled perfectly in the way it was done. But we'll get into that because La'an is sparring with Umbenga. It's clear that it's still not over. What happened with Una. Briefly before this scene, we do get a lovely bit of dialogue with Pelia, Carol Kane, who I absolutely adore. Every tiny scene that she is in, she just steals the show. Because there's one minor scene where they are going through Pelia's possessions, which are all antiques, artifacts, and
I still just wanted to turn into the fairy from Scrooge. So that's
God, yeah, absolutely. Or Festa's missus from the Addams family as well. But she's like, there's like they're going through the artifacts, and Lana's going, "Oh, property of the archaeology department. Well, I used to work there, and tell the Louvre to stop calling me. This is a copy." And there's got like a really famous painting behind her and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, when you live through all the natural disasters and economic downturns as I do, you know to keep your shit." Basically, she's like, "I've still got a place in Vermont in case all this socialist utopia turns out to be a fad." And I'm like, that's a great callback to like how the timeline is Star Trek where they've just got rid of money, and it's like, yes, we are all this. She's like, no, if this goes tits up, I've still got a backlog, I've still got a warehouse of shit that I can flog on eBay. So I'm absolutely... So I love that scene, but after the sparring, La'an is walking through a corridor, there's a flash of light, and then we see a man dressed in a suit, a 21st century suit.
He was kind of like almost like a callback to Decker from Blade Runner with the long jacket and stuff. That was the vibes I was getting off him on that. When she says as well, it's not he's not being shot by a laser beam or phaser beam. It's a bullet.
He's been shot by a bullet.
Yes.
And the first thing and the only thing he said to her, "Get to the bridge." Hands the device. There's another flash of light, like a pan of light, and then red alert kicks off. So she does what she instinctively does is go to the bridge, assuming that's what he meant. She goes to the bridge, and who do we see in the chair? Not the wonderful Captain Pike. We see Captain James T. Kirk in command.
Very skinny James T. Kirk.
Very skinny James T. Kirk. Paul Wesley. Shout out to Paul Wesley in this episode. He fits Kirk like a glove. Much better than season 1, I think.
Yes, but I had problems with Kirk in season 1 because it didn't feel like Kirk. I know it's like pre-Kirk that we got, but he's not as charismatic. I know it sounds bad. Like I love Shatner. Shatner was my captain before thing. That's what I grew up on. So that's like the pedestal. Everyone takes the piss out of Shatner, but I still think him as Star Trek.
Yeah.
But seeing another guy, I know, seeing the Kelvin verse. Was the Kelvin verse where we had
Chris Pine?
Chris Pine. He kind of had that smarminess, that kind of reckless attitude. The Kirk we've got now doesn't quite have that yet. He's still a bit
young.
Yeah, and I know I made the joke. He does need to fill out his uniform a little bit to really be Kirk, if that makes sense. Because if he's going to fight a gun and get his shirt ripped, he needs to have the chest. But at the moment, it would just be, you need a girdle, yes.
Yeah, we absolutely need a girdle. But yeah, so she goes to the bridge and finds that Pike is in command of the Enterprise. Things are starting to change. There's little subtle nods, like the computer displays are blue instead of gold, which I thought was a little nod. The badge is different and everything like that. After the intro, they are hailed by a mysterious ship, and I had a problem with this because we see Spock on the Vulcan ship asking for help, and I'm like, why do we need to shoehorn? I mean, cynicism in me says Spock is the Vulcan because there is a contract and Ethan Peck needs a paycheck, and I'm like, but we didn't need, if there's a Vulcan ship in distress, we didn't need to see Spock.
Spock.
Yeah, it just could have been another Vulcan. They're asking for help. There is apparently a war going on with Vulcan and Romulus. We find out that Kirk is in command of the United Earth Fleet ship Enterprise.
That was a
U.S.S.
really weird name.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yes,
to say.
It didn't feel comfortable. It was like the Earth Fleet Defenders. It was almost like the Avengers of the Star Trek universe. So.
The U.S.S. or something like that. It sounds like a sofa company. You know, go to U.S. for your sale.
Get some dodgy deals there.
Yeah. So they refuse to help the Vulcans. They say we can't fight a war on two fronts. The enemy, you know, we wish that we could help you, but we can't. Kirk takes La'an to the ready room. She explains that things have changed. This is not her timeline. She has to go. A device was given to her, and she basically she surmises that something has happened in the past to change the present, because everything is different. Kirk doesn't know who this Starfleet is. He's part of the United Earth fleet. And
he takes the news quite well, though, because to me it would freak the fuck out. I'll be honest with you. But he's like, "Oh yeah, this sounds plausible. I just can't find you." It's like, so all the other like rational explanations that she's a spy, that she's like could be an enemy with some bullshit story. The button the press could be like some kind of reactor or bomb.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Oh yes, the story you're telling me sounds plausible." It's like,
it's very it's a very diplomatic Kirk.
Yeah.
But at the end, he does say, well, we're going to have this device. We're going to have to analyze this device and send it to our engineers back at, you know, U.S.S. base or whatever he called it. She refuses to give it. They grapple, and next thing, bang, they're warped to an alleyway in 21st century Earth.
Kirk, Shatner would have been at home in an alleyway, though. That's why
being a Canadian as well, of course, he would have been here. Yeah. So, but Kirk does the thing, and he's like, he takes the device and he starts doing this, and I'm just like, it's not working. And he's like, oh, you broke it. Well, I don't know. So they have an argument. Kirk is furious. The device doesn't work. La'an again surmises that we must have been sent to this area, this time, for a reason, and the device won't send us back. So again, there is going to be an attack, which changes the timeline, which she's already been told they have to stop it.
Yeah.
Turns out they are in Toronto.
Yes, not New York.
Not New York, as Kirk says, because he's like, oh, it looks like mid-21st century New York, and she's like, you're kidding, and just points to a sign that clearly says Toronto. And I'm like, come on, dude, like, away. But then she's like, oh, well, have you never been to Earth? Because like this is Toronto, the biggest city in what used to be called Canada. And he's like, I've never been to Earth. He's like, she was like, you know, where were you born? Oh, I was born. Now there's a little bit of an issue here, because he says I was born on the U.S.S. Iowa, not the U.S.S.
Right.
Iowa. So I was like, oh, a little bit of a typo on that one. But again, referencing Iowa, where the actual Kirk was born. They have to go to a clothes shop because they are freezing, or Kirk is freezing, and they do look a little bit out of place. I mean, how skinny is Kirk's legs? How skinny is Paul Wesley? Have you seen it? They're like that.
Someone, we should get a campaign going now. Someone please feed that man. That guy needs a good feeding.
Someone feed more hot dogs for Paul Wesley. No, actually, no. Maybe don't phrase it like that. But more food. Oh God, more food for Paul Wesley. Yes. But they go into a store.
I was going to say, I've had enough food. Look at this. Yes, I'm all right.
I'm getting there again. I need to hop on the bike again because I'm starting to chub out a bit. So
that's not a nice thing to call. I was going to say someone's name there. I was going, no, I'm not going to get that lawsuit done now.
Don't get demonetized. Don't get us demonetized. Spectrum signed out, finally leaving New York alone. Yes. But strangely enough, we don't get a lot of New York in Star Trek, I found. No. Because in beta canon it was nuked to all heaven in World War III. That's what I've led to understand. But they go to a store because they need to change their clothes to look less conspicuous. Kirk struggles with the revolving door, which I was like, I found it quite funny. She's like, have you never seen a revolving door? And he's just like, I'm from space. And I'm like, okay, yeah, then they wouldn't have revolving doors on the starship, I guess. They clash clothes. So Kirk has to change again.
It gets a bit pervy.
It does get a bit pervy because Leanne does have. I did actually write that down. Like Leanne gets a pervy peak. Yeah. Kirk comes out. I did like Kirk's outfit, I must say. So I was like, oh, he's got some good fashion. Good fashion.
So this is going to be the way
Goodwill
dresses when he goes to America.
Yes.
Probably not as many layers, but still.
Oh god, no! All those layers in Nevada, no thanks. But then they find out that in order to get the clothes, they need to exchange currency because when the time that they are from in both universes, there is no money. So La'an tricks the security guard to think someone else is shoplifting, and they just casually walk out of the store.
Teaching a whole load of people how to shoplift all over again. Yeah. So well done.
And I'm like, did no one else see them just walking out with a bunch of clothes?
Mm-hmm.
And then they just bin it as well. They just bin the clothes.
But they always say, like in movies or like in things, if you act confidently enough, people won't react. It's if you act shifty when you're doing something, that's when you catch people's eye and you start thinking. That's how you get away with good grifts or good things. It's just basically believing in yourself so much that other people around you believe. It's like believing your own bullshit. So if they walk out the store confidently that they have bought the clothes, who is it to question them?
And that's how Nerdy Up North has become such a success.
And if the other way as well, if you walk away whistling, never if you whistle, no one ever suspects it if you just go. Jane, Silent Bob taught us that, so yes.
Wow. life hacks from Jane Silent Bob.
Jane Silent Bob style.
Snoochie
I am
Boochies.
the clip commander, guys. Sorry.
Snoochie Boochies.
Yes.
Do you want to fuck me? So yeah, La'an basically says that they can't do that again. So they need to find a way to make money because money is exchanged for goods and services. Flashback to The Simpsons. Again, I please don't take this out of context, guys. I love this episode, but I do think this episode has got issues. And one of the issues is this next scene. Kirk devises a way to make money. Now, how much money does he make hustling at chess?
Question I've got with that as well, very same point. Fair enough. You can hustle people in chess, great.
Yeah.
But normally you've got to put money down first.
Yeah.
To get in the game.
Yeah.
And he had no money. How's he going to get there? Is he just pimping out Liana saying, look, if I lose in this game of chess, you just get to spend half an hour in the battle getting a hand job from her or from him? It is Canada, but yeah.
Oh! Oh!
They are a very friendly bunch, so yes.
Oh, and just as Sammy enters the chat, we hear that. What a way for Sammy to enter. Hi, Sammy.
Sammy's always entering that way.
But yeah, so like he makes a buttload of money from playing chess. I mean, he does say that it's 2D chess, it's idiot's chess. This is a reference to 3D chess, what they play in the future. But I'm like the following scenes, because they have a hot dog. Well, they have more than one hot dog. Oh my! But he watches the sun. I love that. I love the fact he watches the sunset. It takes a moment to appreciate that. It's something that he's never seen with his own eyes. Because he says, "Well, in my time, there is no sunset. There's just ash that's going to be there. It won't disappear for 1,000 years." And then he says to La'an, "My advice: don't skip good hot dogs when you can get them."
Yes.
That hot dog looked delicious, by the way. Can I just say?
It did look like a nice hot dog, but saying that though, I have been to Toronto before, and their food is amazing.
It is.
One of the best places I've ever been, like food-wise. And as a fat lad, I know good food. Poutine is nice as well, yes.
See, we're missing a trick here, because you started food reviews on Nerdy Up North. International food reviews you need to be. You could be like, oh my god. Could you be the guy Fieri?
What's he called? Thing he brought in, whatever it's called, the layover. That TV show. Anyone who watches, like, unfortunately he's passed away, but it used to be on Netflix called The Layover. He used to spend 24 hours in like places all over the world. We used to show you the best places to eat. Sorry, I'm going off. And Adrian Brody, I think it was called. He was a famous chef.
Adrian Brody, I believe. I'm not sure.
But honestly, some of the food there, The Layover, check out, good show.
Sammy's asking, has them tips be refrosted? They will be refrosted in September. The series 1 of the frosted tips has concluded. We're on a summer break, and normal service will resume in September.
He's just frosted the other tips where you can't see at the moment.
So anyway, yeah, the food in it looked nice, and he goes back for another hot dog. But again, the next scene leads me to the question again: how much money did he make from chess? Because that was a goddamn penthouse suite in Toronto. That is not cheap. What?
Toronto's quite cheap. It's probably the cheapest holiday I've ever had.
Really?
I know this is probably going back nearly 15 years, but I got 5 days, 5 nights in Toronto for under £500. That was including flights.
Making mental note. Adam Bailey says, no ketchup or mustard on the hot dogs, though. Yeah, there
was underneath.
Was it underneath?
Because the clever in Toronto, they don't put the ketchup on top. They put it on the bun, so when you put the sausage on.
It absorbs it into the bread. See, these crafty Canadians, they know how to do good food.
Yes. Food tips by Paul. I'll help.
Just the food tip. So,
just the tip. Said many a time to many people.
Two hot dog Paul over here. So, the hotel scene, like the nighttime scene in the hotel where Anne can't sleep, so she walks into the living room to see Kirk asleep on the sofa. There's a lovely views. Well, yeah, there is a silent exchange, although they don't know it. But I'm pretty sure in this scene they were aware of each other. Because Kirk was also...
You can always feel someone watching you.
Yes, that's why Paul never sleeps. Because of me. But it's more... it's... God, we're going to Tim Hortons tomorrow as well. Anyway, so... so Kirk knew that La'an was watching. And this is the first, will they, won't they? Because it's clear now, it's evident that La'an has got the hots for Jim Kirk. As most women do in the 23rd century.
And I'm surprised he went for it because, after all, she wasn't blue.
Green?
Green. Oh, was it green? Sorry.
Green, yes.
That's the green ladies.
Kirk did everyone. It's well established. There are many Kirk children across multiple universes.
Loads of Kirks across the universe, boldly going where all the Kirks have never been before.
Oh, aye. But the next morning, we see there's a reference to sonic showers because in the 23rd century they have sonic showers. They don't use water to clean themselves. But then they hit the nail on the head of basically they are there to stop the divergence in the timeline. And Kirk says, well, this is the fork in the road, and if I help you, I cease to exist and my time cease to exist. And Anne makes the argument that, well, your timeline is a bit sucky.
Yeah.
In mine, at least we are a utopia. And he's like, well, I might not exist. And there's a touching thing where she goes, well, you do, and I've heard a lot of stories from your brother. And then we find out that in his time, Sam's dead.
That's the turning point there, because that was a well-crafted conversation, because to be fair, if Kirk believes what she's saying, Kirk wouldn't be going along with the plan, because he was going along with it too easy. I know he's trying to get home, but he would be trying to resist or stop her from fulfilling what is, because he wouldn't want his timeline to change. As you said, but that was a clever bit of writing, I thought, because it takes away any questions or any what people could go back and say, oh, this doesn't make sense. And it's a very cleverly done piece of thing. It's a good little shift with them as well, because you can tell they're friendly, you can tell they're getting on, but that would have always, say, played on my mind as well. But the fact that she mentions his brother, and he goes, and he stops and he goes, he's still alive. And and you don't need to know anymore. You don't need to know how he died or where he died. Just the fact that and you knew from that moment that Kirk now was on board.
Yeah, because she also said as well, my Earth still has sunsets.
Yeah.
And it's just those little quippy lines. But for him, it cements the fact that, well, in her time, Sam, George, whatever you want to call him, is still alive. And it's it's becoming more and more evident that they need to prevent this so that the right timeline, because rights are not better, but the correct timeline needs to be restored.
It's satisfied, yeah. And I love the little playfulness with him as well, because she ribs him about his name, Tiberius. And
she does later on, I like that.
because they were talking about like because as you said, they said, "Oh, Sam's name isn't George," and a bit of a joke about Sam and Tiberius being weird names.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Sorry, Sammy, if you're still here, you've got a dodgy name in the future."
Great reference to Star Trek 09 though, because when Kirk's born in that film, they're like, "What should we name him?" "Oh, name him after your dad." "Tiberius?" "No, it's an awful name." And it's like, yeah, okay, I can dig that. But as Kirk finds out that Sam's alive, the bridge in the background goes kaboom.
Yes, very good explosion as well.
Very
it was
good
very
explosion.
impressive.
Yeah, the bridge is obviously fake, guys. There is no bridge in Toronto that looks like that. So don't worry about that. I know being up north, we've had an issue with the bridges because Alvida's and Pet, when they took down the Transporter Bridge, they were like, "Oh my God, you've actually done it." It was like, no, CGI. So yeah,
Damn Germans and Geordies.
that was Germans. So yeah, no idea what the bridge is called. It's completely nameless in this show. The next scene, we see them go down to the bridge, which apparently it's took them an hour to get to as well. So I'm like, oh, okay, time's a bit of an issue with this thing. But La'an confirms that she remembers this bridge exploding from history, and so does Kirk. So she goes, well, this is not the divergence point.
No.
And then when they are looking at the debris and the wreckage being pulled, they notice that there's a weird pattern on one of the pillars.
Yeah.
They see a photographer taking pictures in the background. They ask her to zoom in, and then it's confirmed, well, like, that's a photonic explosion. That's a photonic. That's the
did this confirm that Kirk is blind as well? Because he's like, I can see this. He's good. I can't see anything. And it's like that little tit-or-tat thing.
Yeah.
That was a bit. That felt a bit strange.
Yeah, Kirk has got long-sightedness from the looks of it here. He needs to go to spec service. So they zoom in, and La'an confirms that this is a photonic explosion. And obviously no one in the 21st century has that technology. It's 100 years out yet. So where did it come from? They see that it's being loaded into a van, so they go, well, we need to follow that van. And Kirk goes, follow me. And he's like, well, you can't just, cars are not publicly owned, you can't just get one. And he's like, oh, I know. Nerve pinches a poor dude getting into his Challenger. And she goes, well, how did you learn to know that? Like, how did you know how to do that? Great little reference here. I spent 6 months in the Denobulan prison with a Vulcan. Oh, I can also make plomeek soup in the toilet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, who would want to eat soup from a toilet? But great
needs must when you've got to eat, you've got to eat, son.
Well, I know, yeah. So they steal the car. They are following this black van.
And Kirk was shit at driving to start with.
He was shit at driving to start with, but pretty soon he was drifting that bad boy round the corners of Toronto, which I thought, good on you, son.
See, this was probably the most Kirk we've seen, like Kirk-ism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they get stuck in traffic and the van just essentially runs a red, or a police officer. So Kirk's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. And then, this dude who couldn't drive at first is suddenly doing reverse 180s, J-turns, handbrake turns, driving recklessly through public spaces with people around them, and then wonders why the police start chasing him. I love the fact that, by the way, you can tell it's Canada because the police are drinking out of a Tim Hortons mug.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, God, yes, absolutely. The Starbucks of Canada. They pull over Kirk, and Kirk's like, oh, you misunderstand. My license is in my other pants. And I'm just like, oh, it's so
I was like, I actually thought I was watching a Futurama episode with, say, when they was making them type of jokes. I was like, oh, come on.
But as they're being arrested, though, we see the photographer from the bridge, who is harassing the police, and she's like, here you go, arresting a civil defense lawyer, famous civil defense lawyer. Oh, what are you doing? Very relevant to the times where the police are being harassed by the press and they're being harangued and stuff like that.
But they change it from from being a black man to an American, saying you're harassing an American type thing. So like international relations and stuff.
There is there is that thing in Canada, isn't there? There is a little bit of that going on in Canada. But yeah, so they get called away, so they do let Kirk go with a warning, and I'm just like, this dude has just driven recklessly through like pedestrianized places. And
but to be fair though, this is Canada, so it's long as you be nice and be go along your merry way, just don't do it again.
Oh, we're just gonna let you go, eh? So,
What are you
sorry.
talking about?
Oof. Sorry to all the Canadian listeners if there are any. We love you,
Just for
Canada.
the record, they don't have flappy heads like Terrence and Phillip. It's fine.
That's absolutely fine. We shall not slag off any Americans, by the way, because my visa has been accepted. So I love you, America.
What Goodwill the terrorist has been allowed in
No,
America?
don't, because they check all the social media platforms now. Please don't. Uh, which is
One of my
really
friends actually had the visas revoked because they said they're going to paint the town red when they get to America on one of the social medias, and they thought, "You're going to paint it red with blood," and so they actually revoked a visa. They're like, "This is just a saying."
although it is optional for you to put down your social media, they still check it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say. And because I've got a hyphenated name as well, it really doesn't help matters. So yeah, this photographer apparently saves them from being arrested. They introduce themselves. And Sarah states that the bridge was blown up as a symbol of international cooperation. The world is getting smaller, human advancement. And it was blown up to sort of 180 that, because it's like, well,
Yeah.
if we blame it on terrorists, we start attacking each other, human advancement is slowed down, and we can go on fighting each other instead of focusing on the real threat. And she points upwards, and I'm like, this is where like conspiracy theories in the show sort of mirror real life in a sort of way, because there are conspiracy theories where it's like, yeah, these things are happening to stop us from advancing as a species, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh damn.
See, this is where I had a few issues with
Ooh, go on.
with this episode because, like, as you said, I did enjoy it, but as a whole, this was probably the more formulaic. I can't get my words out now. Formulaic episode that we've had in Strange New Worlds, because normally the foreshadowing isn't as blatant as it was in this episode.
Yeah.
And aspects from, like, if we go back from the very start of the episode, like talking about, like, as you said, the new engineer, I can't remember her name now. Pelia. Being interrogated about her wealth and saying like, how she had them so many years ago.
In Vermont.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
In Vermont. Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Also then the same photographer saves Kirk and them from being arrested. And this is where my alarm bells start clicking and going, oh, fuck off, guys. Come on. Don't be that obvious. But we'll come to that later.
It's very... The one thing I love about Strange New Worlds, it is the original series taken from the 60s and plopped into 2020 sensibilities, 2020s sensibilities, which is brilliant. But yes, sometimes you do get the formulaic aspect from the older shows. We had that in the last episode with the trial, where they're summarizing and they do the flashbacks to like 10 minutes previous, where Una's like, I was threatened for my life, and it's like, yes, we know, we literally just heard you say it. So there are those tropes, and I think, yeah, I do agree with you that the formulaic
I think this was more blatant than the others. Others can be done quite subtly, but this was like, this is the first time I've felt it as a TV show, if that makes sense. The others have felt like a continuation or telling the overall story. This felt like an episode out of time, shall we say? Absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The next scene, the cafe, and this Sarah pulls out an iPad and says, "This is the evidence that we've got, that the people that we need to be fighting are aliens, and aliens who are deliberately slowing down human progression to prevent us from going into space." She shows a fella who was waiting 15 minutes prior to the bridge explosion, and then it was the same fella who was loading the debris into the black van. So they're like, right, okay, and then they flip over and then they see a ship, and Kirk sees a ship and he goes, where did you get this? And it's like, oh, it's from someone who was trying to find the International Space Station, but it was a question of the right place at the right time. We know what it is. La'an doesn't know what it is, because at this point in Strange New Worlds, in the Star Trek timeline, that race has not been revealed yet. After they leave the cafe, Kirk then divulges to La'an, after Sarah's left, that they are Romulans, and that Romulans are trying to interfere, because Sarah says that there's this secret cabal of governments who are hiding these attacks in exchange for alien technology, and they are studying the technology here in Toronto, and there are rumours that there is even a cold fusion reactor powering this facility in order to study it. Kirk then realises that, well, hang on a minute, cold fusion reactor, Toronto, there are Romulan involved. There was a cold fusion reactor explosion in a few days' time which wiped out Toronto. Now, I had a problem with this because I was like, okay, you remember that, but surely as soon as La'an said you were in Toronto, the first thing you would probably say is, oh wow, this must have been before the explosion.
Right.
So I sort of struggle with this, that it's took him a few days to realise.
Realise it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
To be fair though, he might have just been thinking with his penis as well, because he was like, "I've got a hot lass like I've just been down the shore with." And it is Kirk.
It is Kirk.
Like, how can I get my end away? And let's not think about explosions just in that way just yet. But no, I completely, I get that. And sometimes, as you said, you're forcing the narrative in a way. Excuse my stupidity here. When did the actual Romulans come into Star Trek? Because I know, as you said, with the being Strange New Worlds, there's no prior knowledge. I know they were in the first season when, we went into the future with Pike after he escaped his fate. But when did the Romulans actually make themselves known in the Star Trek? In canon?
The one thing I will say to you is there is absolutely no stupid question. So first and foremost, don't think you're stupid with that. I am here to educate everyone who might not be as hardcore as a Star Trek fan as I am. So
I do like the Trek though. As I can verse with anything else.
So that particular Romulan ship wouldn't have been familiar because there was the Earth Romulan War. So Strange New Worlds in the original series take place in the 2250s and 2260s. There was a Romulan war between Earth and Romulus in the 2150s. That's when the huge major Romulan war took place. That's when the neutral zone was established. But one of the points of that war was humans never saw Romulans. They never actually saw the face of Romulans. So after the war, the Romulans weren't heard of for 100 years, up until the original series episode, The Balance of Terror.
Right.
That is when it's revealed that... Now, the original series is obviously after Strange New Worlds with Kirk.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah.
That's when you see... That is when you see that particular ship, the Romulan bird of prey, and the Romulans for the first time. You see them, and the crew of the Enterprise see them for the first time, because... I mean, if you haven't seen that original series episode, please go watch it, because it's a great Master and Commander. It is a great naval tactician episode, but it also deals with xenophobia brilliantly, because the Romulans, we know why they look alike, budgetary reasons, but the Romulans look like Vulcans.
Yeah.
So there is a great deal of xenophobia within that episode where it's like, well, if they're Romulans, Spock might be a Romulan, and then the xenophobia comes in. So at this point in Strange New Worlds, the Romulans haven't been seen for nearly 100 years. They don't know what the ships look like. Kirk says to La'an, that ship is a Romulan ship. But obviously La'an is not in the original series, so we can sort of negate that. But
that's always going to be the sad bit when it comes to when we get to the original series. I think you and Graeme said in a few episodes ago how many episodes or seasons we get with Strange New Worlds. The characters that we are characters that we are starting to fall in love with might not always get happy endings, shall we say.
But there is also, praise be to the gods at Paramount, there is also a lot of room for spin-offs in this era. The great thing about Star Trek is the in-universe timeline, it's like from 2151 to 2402 when Picard finished. But there are massive, huge gaps within that timeline. So there's something called the Lost Era, which was when the original series movies finished and then when the Next Generation started. So there's like 60, 70 years there. And it's the same between the original series. There's a lot of exploration you can do with other characters. It's like Marvel. There's a universe to explore, like Star Wars, a universe to explore. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of spin-offs if the spin-offs are justified. But getting back to the Romulan thing, at this point in Star Trek history, the Romulans haven't been seen for nearly a century. So La'an wouldn't know who they are, what they look like, what the ships look like. So Kirk goes, Kirk and La'an agree, this is the divergent. The explosion of this cold fusion reactor is the divergent, because La'an didn't have a clue what was going on. So they need let me just find it. They need to find someone, an engineer, in order to develop a tricorder to help them locate this cold fusion reactor before it's too late. And like you quite rightly mentioned with the foreshadowing earlier, La'an looks at the telly and sees Vermont. And she goes, I actually might know someone. They somehow
find the address.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, they do explain that how they find the archaeology department, but for people with no passports, no identification at all, they somehow, and quickly I may add, get from Toronto over the American border. Maybe had to stop.
It isn't easy. I've tried it. It's not easy.
It's not easy at all.
No.
Over the border to America via Niagara Falls, probably because it's Niagara Falls, and get into Vermont.
Yeah.
And they find the archaeology department, Pelia.
Yes.
So we see Pelia, and again, yes, there are holes, but god damn it, Carol Kane steals every single limelight when she is on camera. Yeah. I love Carol Kane so much.
Carol Kane should be in everything. Get her in Marvel now.
Get her in Marvel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Carol Kane is for Professor Xavier. I'm saying it now.
Well, La'an says, I know your secret. Talks her way into getting into Pelia's place. Comes out with it straight away in the next scene that you're a Lanthanite. And that I know you're a Lanthanite and you stole that painting from the Louvre. And at this point, Pelia's doesn't even say a word, because La'an's like, I know you stole it 100 years, 200 years into the future. I fucking know you stole that. That is real. Yeah. So I'm so glad she's pulling her up on a bullshit 300 or 200, 300 years before she should. But she asked Pelia that they need help to find this cold fusion reactor. We need an engineer. And she's like, so why the hell have you come to me? I work retail. She's like, I don't know about math. I haven't studied math and said, since Pythagoras came up with the crap. And I'm like, damn, how old is she? To be knocking around with good old Pythagoras in our Greece.
She's seen a lot of things, but that again, there's a callback from when we were introduced to her as well. And we found out why, what's the worst thing about being immortal type thing. It's just the boredom. So that might have been the trigger point for her to become an engineer.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
So it's probably put that idea in her head now. It's like, right, these have come back to the future and says I'm an engineer. Let's see what this shit is about. So yeah.
So La'an basically says, well, if you can't help me, we need to find something that will help us detect the byproducts of a cold fusion reactor, heat sources, changes, and then she mentions tritium as a byproduct, to which Pelia says, wow, yeah, tritium. They're in divers' watches. And immediately I looked down at my wrist and I was like, holy shit, yeah.
So Goodwill's been walking around looking for a cold fusion reactor, saying, "Are you around here, you son of a bitch?"
Because I always wear, oh God, I have done for decades. I always wear divers' watches, and I was like, Christ, yeah, they are radioactive. So yeah, So she pulls out this divers because she's like, oh yes, because tritium's in divers' watches, and they're all a fad in the 80s, which they were. And then Kirk explains that tritium lasts for about 20 years before failing and decaying. And then Lan goes, oh well, the dials must be covered in something to make it reactive, a phosphorus. So she goes, well, if we expose it to the air, we will be able to find a cold fusion reactor based on the glow of the diver's watch.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, okay, that's fine.
Science checks out. Science bitch.
Heads back to Toronto. Heads back to Toronto, goes back over the border.
Yeah. Those Mounties not stopping them there.
Due south, due north.
Due south.
Due north. There's a spin-off. I'm going to do a spin-off about due south.
Oh, can we talk about due south?
Yes.
Do an episode just
Yes.
on...
Yes. I'm looking at the box set right now. Oh, due south.
It had the best theme tune. I can't even remember.
Due south. That's the way I'm going to. Why didn't they play that during that scene?
That should have been. We have to write a petition now to get a Star Trek due south crossover.
Shouts out to Diffenbaker. Shouts out to Leslie Nielsen, may he rest in peace, who was the ghost. God, what a tangent. Tangents without Graeme, Jesus. We
would have liked due south.
Who doesn't like due south? Any due south lovers in the chat, please?
Please let us know.
Shout out. But who would like a due south episode? Yeah. We'll put Archer on the back burner.
Due south episode and an Archer episode.
We'll put Archer on the back burner. We'll get on due, just as an excuse for me to binge due south again.
Right.
Because there's also a callback to Battlestar Galactica in due south, but I'll get into that when I get a Battlestar Galactica series. God damn it. I can link anything to anyone.
Greenlit, god damn it, I've give you the
I know it's been greenlit, I just don't have the time. Anyway, they go back to Toronto and they are just walking around Canada's biggest city trying to find a cold fusion reactor. And again, okay, it is a plot hole, but it is there. They've got no other way, so they walk and they walk and they walk. This is a lovely scene, though, between Kirk and La'an. Because you can see La'an is like, what if I can bring you back to my time? Because Kirk's resided to the fact that once they set the timeline right, he is not going to exist. And La'an goes, well, what if I can bring you back to my time? And we do see a very rare vulnerability of La'an, who has always been hard-nosed throughout the series, that, she puts up a barrier and it gets lonely.
Which is called pervy instinct towards Kirk.
Who wouldn't? But it's... but
anyone in the chat, would you turn for Kirk?
Peaches, I love due south. Becca loves due south. Friend called a dog Diffenbaker. I made a Mountie uniform cake once. You made a Mountie uniform cake? Right, that's it. I'm getting a Mountie uniform.
It's because she wants to mount you.
Hey, I do call Anson mount me. Anson Mountie.
Anson Mountie now.
Anson
the due south in a due south remake.
Right.
Anson Mount as the main star.
I famously pride myself as captain of the U.S.S. Adequate in getting Strange New Worlds greenlit, as being the brave boy that I am, and speaking to Anson Mount at Destination Star Trek Birmingham and asking him, do you want to do this? I got a round of applause and everything. Due south, I'm going to do the same thing, and it's going to be Anson Mountie.
Anson Mountie, yes.
Oh, the photoshops I'm going to do later. He's in Toronto, Paul. He's in Toronto. They can film it next to Strange New Worlds. It could be the crossover we all need. Oh my God, what happens if they say that Pike goes to the menagerie, goes to Talos 4, lives out his life, and he lives his life as a 21st century Mountie. This show writes itself. We've got the Star Trek connection. We've got... we'll
have a cute dog as well.
Paramount. Everyone tweet Paramount now. Okay? Get them on the horn.
Might get producer rights or some kind of special rights. I don't know.
It's Nerdy Up North affiliated.
Yes.
It's Star Trek. Oh. Wow.
You can
Okay.
be the crazy cop, buddy. You can be the you can star in it. You can be the crazy cop.
Yes, because I love driving muscle cars.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And can you imagine Anson Mount saying, "Thank you kindly"?
And being your best friend, and you be giving him good sass.
Goodwill has it all planned. Yes, Becca, I do. I've got my notes right here. I'm going to start doing due south in a minute. Anyway,
Due South fan fiction with Anson Mount and Star Trek
Anson
crossover.
Mounty.
Anson Mounty. That's what his new name is
Anson
now.
goddamn Mounty. God, if I ever get Anson Mount on Trekking Up North, that's the first thing I'm going to say. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I talked about pie with Mark. I will talk about Mounties with Anson Mounty.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Right.
So they're back in New York looking for this cold reactor.
New York, Toronto.
Toronto, yes.
Oof. All right, Paul Wesley. Oh my God, you Paul Wesley. Oh no. Oh, it's all gone wrong. We've gone into due south territory.
Wheaton! Yes.
But like Arn and Kirk kiss.
Yes.
That for me was a genuine kiss as well. Not genuine in real life, but it was.
It was
yeah.
quite subtle. It was quite nice. It didn't feel out of place.
Sarah's just said I've got the Hawaiian shirt. I've got more than one Hawaiian shirt, Sarah. Don't you worry about that. I've got an entire 20-season run. But yeah, it was a lovely kiss, which was interrupted by the glowing diver's watch, because as you're about to smoochy boochies, they turn out to be right on top of a cold fusion reactor. So they walk into a building, and the building is the Noonien Singh Institute for Cultural Development.
Yes, and Kirk didn't know anything about it.
No,
Like,
who's Noonien Singh? Because in his time there is no Noonien Singh. So, I'm so consumed with
the love of with Anson Mounty now.
Yeah.
So yes,
but they see a gentleman place a hand in the pad and walk in. So so Anne postulates that maybe with her DNA she can do it. So she tries it and she goes, "Oh, it must be a DNA marker that allows me access to the facility." As she does, we hear the cocking of a gun. And who is stood behind them with a gun, Paul?
the foreshadowing activist who was telling them
Sarah,
all
the
about
photographer.
aliens.
Yeah.
Who was a Romulan.
She was a Romulan. She was a
From
Romulan
Nigeria.
from the future. And
From the future, she'd done a full fry, but she didn't sleep with her grandmother.
yeah. So she admits that Romulans have been slowing down humanity's progress in order to prevent them from going to the stars. So
Yes.
Kirk, being Kirk, says, "You can shoot me. That'll trigger the alarms, that'll trigger the guards, and you will not get in to this facility." Sarah goes, "Are you calling my bluff?" He goes, "Try me." And she just straight up slugs him in the stomach. Which I was like,
I wasn't expecting that. I thought that, like I said, that was a bit of a surprise. But that was, like I said, wonderfully played by, like I said, Kirk as well. Because that was, as we mentioned earlier, the Kirk in the first season wasn't the Kirk we all know.
I think Paul Wesley was struggling with the role in the first instance. Yeah.
But now we're getting Kirk. We're getting the Tiberius twat that we used to, and I love the arrogance of it as well. That's one thing I always loved about Kirk was his arrogance, because his arrogance and his charm and his libido got him out of pretty much any problem he had, and I was kind of like, yes, this is going to work, but then it was like, fuck, it didn't work.
Yeah, it was his sense of humor, even to his dying breath in this, where he's just like, "Oh yeah, not bluffing," and it's just like, you've been shot and you're dying, and he just has to get that final quip out. I do love the fact he says, "Say hi to Sam for me," and then you see, I love the audio in Strange New Worlds, but I love like this scene where he's passing away, and as he's passing away, like Arn's voice gets more muffled and more muffled and more muffled, and then snaps back when Sarah goes, "Oh, this is worth it, killing the infamous James T. Kirk." Because she knows, like, obviously she's from the future, she knows exactly how famous she is. Sarah then drags La'an into the facility, which, by the way, how long does that door remain open without anyone
They have a
getting
good
into
fight though as well. Like the combat
Straight
scene and
into
the
this,
action
yeah.
scene, was really well done. And like I said, and she holds her own against the Romulan as well, which was impressive. But we knew she was going to get overpowered.
Yeah, because just before the fight scene, La'an goes, well, are you going to blow up the cold fusion? She goes, oh, well, that was plan A, but now I don't need a grenade, I need a scalpel. Instead of going to the reactor, they go to the genetics laboratory, and you're just like, okay, Noonien Singh, genetics laboratory. They go down a corridor, and there we see a door with Khan.
Yes.
And
I did get goosebumps as well. I was like,
yeah, I went, oh shit, they're actually going to go there. But then I got subtle hints, because you saw the child drawings, and then you saw the way Khan was written, and you're like, he's still a child.
Yeah.
But then, so at this point, like right at this point, my mind, I was like, okay, in the original thing, Khan escaped Earth in 1996 after causing the eugenics wars and blah 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 blah. So I was like, so why is he a child now? What's going on? Has there been some time traveling shenanigans? Which Sarah, and big props to the showrunners for this as well, and the writers. The eugenics wars has been one of the most contentious elements of Star Trek since the 80s, because in the original series it was in the early to mid 90s the eugenics wars happened, millions were killed. Obviously the 90s came and went, and they didn't really address it. It was talked about in certain shows but never really addressed, and they were like, oh, it was a Cold War thing, it wasn't an all-out war.
It's a hard one to discuss though as well, because I know that like they do wars, but this is more personal, more internal. So, and like as you said, the conversation with genetics and like it can bring up some things. So I think purposely they might have stayed away from it just to try and not stoke any fires.
They could have, but I do believe it's more of a continuity issue,
right?
Because obviously the 90s have come and gone. They are 33 years. And what the writers have done in providing the script has, because Sarah says there's been events that have been omitted, and then events have been self-inserted. You've had the temporal Cold War. This was supposed to be done in 1992. I've had to wait 30 years to do this. So I'm like, right. So to get around the continuity issue of the eugenics wars, they are saying that the temporal Cold War, which was heavily featured in Star Trek Enterprise, has meant that the timeline has changed. But it has changed where they, instead of the eugenics wars happening in the 90s, it is yet to happen past 2020, which is sort of like one of the prevailing theories, like after the 90s in beta canon, was the eugenics wars was the initiation of World War III. So you had this war that spilled over into a global war. So I'm like, I'm sort of okay with that. And if you just say, to quote Doctor Who, wibbly wobbly time travel stuff, to justify that in a subtle yet clear way for Star Trek fans, I'm like, yeah, okay. Because Star Trek up to this point is like, oh, eugenics wars were the 90s, but we won't go into it because it's a canon headache. And they're just like, well, the temporal Cold War, everything chop and change. So this major event hasn't happened yet, but it hasn't really changed much.
So it's kind of like a fluid in time. It's basically any type of events that can happen. Like the eugenics wars has to happen.
It has to happen to have the Star Trek we know, but it doesn't have to happen in the date that you think
it does. So it can be moved about. So it's like fluid. It's like string theory or like anything like that.
It's sort of like cyclical time. Like Battlestar goes into this where all of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again. There is a preset of events that always lead to the same destination and the same conclusion. And it's the sort of say with the eugenics wars, yes, it's been changed, but the events will still happen, which will lead to a War 3, which will lead to blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
yeah.
okay,
But, because that like leads us to like the point that we're trying to make with Khan. Like Khan's is a focal point in time where, like there'll be other ones as well. Like they mentioned about like in the previous episode, Pike having to go through his thing. It's a focal point in time. If you change that, it changes the rest of everything. There's a lot of things that it can change that it won't have as much. But
it's a great, it's an excellent plot device for the writers to have in order to modernize stuff, because they could just turn around and say Temple Cold War.
Yeah,
that's what that happened. You know, like there is daft
like
stuff.
It's like a get out of you know, like get out of jail free card of Monopoly type thing.
The reunification of Ireland is supposed to happen in 2024. If it happens, brilliant. If it doesn't happen, future Star Trek can say Temple Cold War. Yeah. That's what. So they but like I said, the journey is different. The destination remains the same, which is like, okay, I'm up to that. So getting back to the show, the ultimatum given by Sarah is open the door. We need to kill Khan. La'an reveals that my surname is Noonien Singh, and my legacy is genocide, torture, and me. And then Sarah basically justifies that, well, if we kill Khan, you don't have the stigmatism of his legacy. You don't have the baggage that comes with that surname. But La'an is starting to understand, as most people do when you talk about time travel, because there's always that trope of, if you had the ability to time travel, would you go back and kill a certain Austrian maniac who we shall not name? And everyone's like, well, you could, but the events that took place because of what happened...
How do you know the person who comes after him is not going to be worse?
Yeah, and how do you know that the technological advancements that happened because of the events that they started would not happen? This is I like to say, this is the Fallout syndrome, where Fallout's timeline is like, this is what happened if the microtransistor didn't happen. And this is why everything looks like the 50s, because progress was very slow because of this. And it's like, if the famous Austrian hyperactive dude didn't do what he needed to do and didn't exist, would we have the world we have?
Just imagine if someone never insulted his artwork and he didn't get upset and decided he wanted to kill everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. So La'an is realizing that, yes, in order for her world to survive, Khan has to survive. The fight
has to go through everything that she goes through.
Yeah.
For a bit, it's like it's as you said, the Spock episode as well. The needs of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
All the one. Yeah. And it's so the great fight ensues, as we've already discussed. La'an shoots Sarah. Sarah has the Romulan equivalent of a cyanide pill in her neck, which dissolves her.
That was freaky as fuck.
That was whoa, yeah. But La'an goes into the room with the gun, leading the audience to believe, is she still thinking about it? And then we hear, now I got chills at this. Then we hear Khan as a boy. And he's like, are you here to kill me? And I was like, oh my God, they are actually showing us a child version of Khan. And then in the splits, like in the moment where she's considering it, she goes, no, you're just a boy. But it's a double-sided meaning, because she's looking at Khan, she's going, you're just a boy, I wouldn't kill you. But for us, she's like, he's just a boy. How can I kill him?
It's one of them things as well. Like, would you be tempted to say, give him a slap across the face as well and say, don't be a dick. don't create mass genocide.
But this is the thing, because she asks, are there others with you? And he points to a picture. Now, in Star Trek, it wasn't just Khan. Khan only controlled a quarter of the planet. Yeah. There were more augments that controlled the planet. And it's like, and again, it's like you just said earlier, Paul, if you kill Khan, what's to say whoever takes their place would, weren't as bad or even worse?
Yeah.
So La'an spares his life and says, "You're exactly where you need to be." The device turns green and she warps out. Now, I don't know if you noticed this. She left the goddamn gun on his desk.
No, I didn't.
She left the gun. Let's just leave a gun in a kid's bedroom and see what.
To be fair, he was a clever guy. He probably could have made a gun by himself. So.
Yeah, very true. Very true. There was a lot of scientific formulas displayed all over the room. But she warps out and goes back to the Enterprise. But is it her Enterprise?
Yes, and that was the scary thing, that the nerves kick in.
Yeah.
Is a boy toy going to be there in the chair? But no, it was our boy toy.
It was Anton Mounty and his fabulous quaff arguing with Pelia and Una. Pelia just basically say, "Well, the statute of limitations is expired now in regards to the painting from the Louvre." La'an confirms that it's hers, and Pike's like, "Well, you're out of uniform. What's going on?" "Oh, I was just conducting some tests." But Pelia recognises.
That was my question, because Pelia looks at her. I was expecting an interaction with them. Yeah. We didn't get that interaction.
Potentially in a future episode.
Possibly, but after what comes next, that's when it. Because
that's the final scene, isn't it? They go back to La'an goes back to the quarters where the Department of Temporal Investigations are there. Also, quick shout out to that device, by the way. The little graphic that it shows, that is copy and paste from a Star Trek Voyager episode from the 29th century, from the U.S.S. Relativity. Becca's probably got to appreciate that. It's I love the fact that they've shoehorned that in as a nod to like, this is the future, but this is the future you still know.
This always brings to me, because when they do things like this, fair enough, it ties everything up in a nice little bow. But then it opens up a lot more questions for me, because I'm a bit of a dick when it comes to these type of things. So I think, well, if it's happened now, why did it not happen a few episodes ago when Pike was shown that when Pike from the future came back to tell him, like, if he doesn't sacrifice or doesn't, again, that's changing it. So wouldn't they be there to police that aspect?
I suppose
when the other aspects, when they've went back in time to do things on other episodes or other movies like the Star Trek, where were these guys then? What were they fucking doing? Were they having a day off then, or was it like
I suppose maybe they didn't detect them, which is it's a flimsy excuse. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But because we got this with Cisco in the Trouble with Tribbles in DS9, where the Department of Temporal Investigations, and it's like, where were they for the Balance of Terror remake? They weren't there. They might have been there. We don't know. They could be. They could have been behind the scenes, but they advise La'an that she can't mention it to anyone, and La'an just loses her shit that she's had to. The people she has sacrificed so that he may live. But the woman goes, "Well, you were not supposed to know about any of this. You were not supposed to know about all of this. You have done what you needed to do to preserve the timeline."
But that's the thing when it comes to time travel. This is because for me to make sense, everything has to happen in the way. So, in essence, she was always had to go back because they said the bomb was always going to go off because it was high technology.
Yeah.
If Sarah was involved with the bomb, so Lana and Kirk were always meant to go back and stop that from happening.
Yeah.
So that, like, in every single timelines, that was meant to be happening. So for her to say you weren't supposed to know, that's bullshit because she was supposed to know because she was always meant to fix it.
This is Star Trek treating time as linear, and not treating time as fluid, which what most science fiction does. Whereas the current theory is multiverse. The current theory is though every, like a separate timeline exists in its own universe. So that's why you've got the Kelvinverse, because there was a divergent. The Kelvinverse existed. It was directly referenced in Star Trek
my
Discovery.
time travel as I like a lot of things. Very simple. Back to the Future style.
Linear.
Keep it like that. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, keep it linear.
Yes.
So she hands the device. The Department of Temporal Investigations leaves, and we see La'an contact Kirk. This is the first time in Strange New Worlds we have seen proper in-universe, in-time Kirk.
That was very sweet, I thought, as well.
I love that.
Kirk could have just went, "Who the fuck are you?" But he went all sleazy and was like, "Hi there. Come and get me a drink sometime."
Where was your brother born? Iowa, same as me. And it's like, but right at the end when she just breaks down, I felt for her, because someone who she has let in has gone, and the version that she has spoken to is not her version. Because Kirk's coming back this series, we know this for a fact. When he does, that is going to be an interesting scene between them two. Yes,
they're going to do like as the best police commissioner in Brooklyn Nine always here. They're going to bone.
Yes, queen. So, but no, overall, the episode, although formulaic, we will say that, and there were some holes, shall we say, in terms of time, travel, distance, money, everything like that. On the whole, another solid episode.
It's great. It wasn't one of my favourite episodes. Like, say, from the first season, there wasn't a single bad episode. I'm not saying this was a bad one. This one felt like it was trying to take it in a direction, or at least hinting directions, but it didn't feel like it. Like, almost this season's been a bit strange. I'll be honest. Like the first episode when Anson Mount disappeared, that was like, it was a good episode, but I was like, didn't seem right. Now again, another episode where Anson Mount's not involved heavily, where again, I don't know if there's been like issues with having him on.
There is a genuine reason, and it is lovely. It's his partner gave birth at the filming of season 2. So
so that makes more sense now.
So he wasn't around a lot for the first half of filming, but to play devil's advocate here, yes, the first episode, Pike should have stolen the Enterprise, and I do believe that was probably what was originally written. But without Pike, without such an awesome presence, we allow other cast members who haven't really had much time to shine take their stage. So we've allowed La'an to have her episode. We are going to get an Ortegas episode, which everyone has been clamoring for since season 1. Ortegas is going to get a time to shine, who's the helmsman. That is what, for me, that is what Star Trek does best, where yes, you've got the captain, yes, you've got the first officer, but the episodes that thrive are the episodes where we explore the backstory and the characters of the ensemble. So we had it in Voyager, we had it in DS9, TNG, everything like that. Is what...
Yeah, I think with this one, I know, given the Khan backstory, that was always important. But to me, it felt like given a love interest there, so that's going to be the connection, like, going forward. I think my question to you, and I know like
Ask
a lot
away.
of people can always discuss, where do you think this season's going to go? Because there's been lots of hints, like from going battleship in the background to now Khan to a lot of time travel. Where do you think it's going to go like in this season? Because we're going to get, I think you and Graeme discussed, I think we're going to get 4 or 5 seasons of this before
there is a preset set of seasons. That has to be, because Pike dies. Not dies, sorry. Pike has an accident at a certain point, which is not avoidable. We know it's not avoidable. as I'm actually talking, I'm buying collectibles because the drops just come on. Star Trek. But it's it's very episodic. Strange New Worlds is episodic. It works best as episodic, but the overarching theme.
Let's do it because we know what the end game is. But what's the end like for this season? Because the season before was basically to let Pike realize, like, to accept everything and what has to happen.
Yeah.
So where do you think this season? Because as you said, this season's more focusing on the crew so far. Are we going to get to the Khan point of view at the end of this season?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so, because we have got. There is a rumor.
Okay.
Man, I've just nabbed 2 very rare collectibles. Sorry, I'm buzzing. Anyway, there is a rumor that there is going to be a musical episode of Strange New Worlds.
Right. Okay. Like the Buffy episode. So
like the Buffy episode, which was one of the first ones to do it. There's a rumor about that. There is the Star Trek Lower Decks crossover as well. Some more time travel. The overarching theme is going to be time travel. They're going to move away. I think they're going to try and move away from Pike and the inevitability of his life. Yeah. And they're going to do time travel.
Because the only thing as well with that element, there's only so much like, it's the Captain America effect for me. Like the first Captain America in the Marvel films was a good origin story, but there was no danger, there was no suspense, because everything that happened, you knew what was going to happen, you knew Cap was going to be okay. And the same with Pike. Any mission that Pike goes on, he's going to be okay, because the end point, that's not going to diverge, that's not going to change. So
that's fixed.
The only thing is, the only thing that worries you is which crew members are going to make it with him, which crew members aren't. So that's the thing, or as you said, which is going to get moved off to other things. But for me as well, as you said, I agree totally with what you said. I think the whole overall arc is going to just be a lot about different time travels, or these new inspectors of time that's been brought in, that we are going to see more of as well.
Adam has also hinted at the Gorn War, which was hinted at season 1 as well. Yes, we will see more of the Gorn, but that itself brings a continuity headache because no one's seen the Gorn, or there was no hi Jake, we love you too. There was no mention of a Gorn War. So do we break canon again and have, like we had with the Klingon War, and then have a Gorn War? How are they going to mention it? But this is where the time travel aspect's going to come in. I think
possibly because with any government or with any like federation, shall we say, there's probably a lot of different things that go on that the general public or the general world don't know about. So there might be a secret Gorn War, because like they're already keeping the Gorn quite secret now as well, because in the background you've got the Gorn, like they've just seen the Gorn ship on edge of the neutral space.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that was mentioned a few episodes ago or so ago. So they could do a Gorn War where it's just like a few starships, and they take out the Gorn like possibly till Kirk rips his shirts off and beats the shit with a rock. That could be an element, like as you said, or a war lost in time.
Yeah, the problem with prequels, and this is the same with any show, you know what's going to happen eventually. It's exploring the stories, which is fine. I've got nothing against prequels, but introducing major elements like a war, it would be like, well, this has never ever been mentioned. This is never like the Klingon War. It was hinted at, but it was never, this was an all-out war, and it was only 10 years ago. It was never mentioned in the original series, which is like, okay.
Well, put it this way. I know, because they always say the victor always says, what happens if it's a war that Starfleet don't necessarily win with the Gorns? And they just go away and leave them to their own space and time and say, right, we don't go there.
Because there is a Gorn hegemony, I know that, but it's
If you see a Genesis planet, I'll punch you.
no, it's not the Genesis planet. No, it's the Gorn hegemony is what they call like the Gorn Empire.
Yeah.
It's. I think they need to be careful with it, but I do think we're going to see more Gorn. It's going to be more time travel. Obviously, we've got the Lower Decks crossover, which it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. I believe again it's wibbly wobbly time travel. But it's wibbly wobbly time travel from the Cerritos' side, not necessarily Pike. The musical episode, there is going to be standalone episodes. We know that, and I think
I'm liking that they're taking risks, though, because as you said, it's a prequel show.
Yeah,
if it's a prequel show, if it just went from A to B, it would probably not be as fun. But the more risks they take, the more interesting aspects they like. I think they've got to rely heavily on the characters, and they've picked a fucking good bunch of people to be the characters as well.
Oh God, 100%. Even the guest characters, like the lawyer from last week's episode, absolute chef kiss of an actor, absolutely brilliant. But the episodes, I know they are going to play fast and loose with the canon, and again, I'm fine with that. It was the 60s, guys. If you believe that whatever was stated in Star Trek in the 60s should be fact, you don't know Star Trek, because Star Trek has always played fast and loose with most of the canon.
I wouldn't mind as well. I know I've been a bit self-indulgent with my name on the podcast here. A Q reference as well, because I know we've got Q come back in Picard, but imagine Q coming back like to make a appearance, especially if you're talking time travel or aspects as well.
There is a link. There is a famous link between the Q, which we see starting in the Next Generation, and an entity in the original series who was not called the Q, but had every single aspect and element of a Q. There is a people would like to see that part of the Q continue, but we've had Q in season 2 of Picard. We have had a glimpse of him in season 3 of Picard. I think if they're going to do a Q element, it would have to be done very carefully, because if Legacy is greenlit, the trial continues for Jack Crusher.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 2 series running concurrently with Qs in them. They tried it in DS9 and they sort of dropped it from DS9 and kept it in Voyager. They didn't have them running concurrently because it's like, oh God, they're in this, they're in that episode. They did it with the Borg. If you look at the Borg,
I was gonna say, yeah, don't bring the Borg into this yet.
But if you look at Star Trek in the 90s, you had the Borg in the Next Generation. You had no Borg in DS9, but you had Borg in Voyager. So they played it carefully. So they were like, well, this series antagonists is the Jem'Hadar. This series antagonists is the Borg. They are not fighting on both fronts. So I think there may be a reference to the character in the original series, which I'd be quite happy with, to be honest with you. But it would have to be without Spock again.
Yeah.
But with this, the episodic.
I wouldn't mind a season without Spock on the Enterprise, because how close Spock and Pike are now, and then when you see how close Spock and Kirk is in the future, I think that friendship, I think Spock and Pike's friendship needs to be a bit fractured at some point.
They were always tight, because that's how we got the menagerie. That's why Spock stole the Enterprise in the menagerie. But it's we need that. I think we do need that friction. But the first half of season 2, we're going to see less of Pike, which is okay, as long as we get more of him in the latter episodes. But I'm on a whole.
Due South spin-off there.
Anson Mountie. On a whole, season 2, again, it's going up. There's a few trips along the way, but I mean I enjoyed season 1 of Strange New Worlds.
Season 1, I say it was a revelation for me. I binged it in 2 days. I watched all the episodes in 2 days, which
we've had Picard, which is the pinnacle. We've had we are getting Strange New Worlds, and then we are going to get Lower Decks. So we are spoilt with high quality Star Trek.
To be fair, though, we just need an answer to what that fucking thing was on the motion picture, the first one, because I still don't know what the end was. It I know, but still don't know what the fuck it was.
The fun fact, and this is going to be probably my final fun fact before we wrap up. V'ger was a race of, was artificial beings. It was constructed by artificial beings to send back. When the Borg was being created in the Next Generation, they wanted the Borg to be the race that created V'ger. And Gene Roddenberry just went, absolutely not. I don't want. They are completely different. I don't want the Borg being linked to the beings that created V'ger. Nothing to do with them whatsoever. It would have worked nicely if they'd have done it properly, but V'ger will forever be a mysterious entity. Ironically, in Star Trek Online, they have been exploring the V'ger aspect and the race itself. Star Trek Online explores a lot of races that have not been done in actual canon, but in TV and film, I don't think we're going to hear a lot about V'ger.
Well, should do, because the movies still were the best things for me. I still love all of them. There's no bad Star Trek movie.
All Trek is good Trek, as the Shuttlepod show say. All Trek is good Trek. As Spectrum Sanctorum say, # no toxic Trek. As I say, I just love it all. I love it all. I love all Star Trek. Yes, they're good. Yes, they're bad. But at least you are getting Star Trek, because you could have no Star Trek whatsoever.
And we'll just talk about the wars. We will just talk about the wars,
yes. So, guys, that has been our review of episode 3 of Strange New Worlds. I would like to thank my wonderful stand-in co-host Q/Paul /cult leader /Goonie.
I'm not as fabulous as Cyanoids, but hopefully I did him justice.
Oh, well. Cyanoids may be back next week. We are working on it.
I can't be on next week's episode. I'm sorry, I can't fill in that one. I've got too many things, and I think I'm on the Monsters episode next week.
Oh God, you're going to get busy, man. So we are working to possibly get Science Officer Cyanoids back. It may be a recorded episode next week, guys. It depends. We've got clashing timetables and time. It's crazy to be this busy. La-di-da. But Cyanoids is obviously busy. Doing his other work. I will forever be impressed with how he has not just dropped to the floor in a catatonic state yet. If I can't get him on,
it's all the sex he's having with the Goodwill. That's what's keeping him going.
Yes, it is. We do have the sex, the SEKS. We have it all the time. If for whatever reason Science Officer Cyanoids is not released by Section 31, you can rest assured I will have another co-host. Oh yes, I will.
Yeah,
the crew, the adequate. The crew, the adequate is plentiful. I will draft another subordinate up from the lower decks, shall we say? So don't worry about that. But me and the Nerdy Up North gang, tomorrow we are going to see Indy 5. No, I'm looking forward to it.
Can I call you short round tomorrow?
No, because that's racist.
What? It's a term of endearment. Well, yes.
No, it's racist.
Yes, we're going to do the Dial of Destiny tomorrow. How long is the movie? 2 hours and
2 hours 22 minutes. So if you include advertisements and stuff, we're going to be there for about 3.5 hours.
Yeah, then like I say, I'll do the design work, and hopefully we'll jump on and talk about Indy for an hour, and like I say, you can get our thoughts. You don't have to watch it straight away, just simply because I know we will be talking about spoilers.
Yes,
on Sunday, we do have a debut on the podcast on Sunday. He's been on a few things before, but this is his actual first time guesting on the podcast. We have the Man Mountain himself, the man with all the arms and the 7 foot, 9 foot pythons. Yes, we've got Adam is joining us to talk all things, and we've got Sonia joining us as well.
Oh, have you got any wet floor signs just in case? Because Adam is a beast of a man.
It's going to be the most beautiful podcast in the world. There's Jake's on it as well.
Oh my God, the divine representation as well.
Yes. Then Monday is the Monster Monday. We've got like a special guest joining Dan and Sammy. We've got Creature from the Black Tattoo, and they're talking about the Predator. No one from the royal family. The one from the monster movies. That basically that is from Predator, Predator 2.
Are you sure there's not going to be a cameo?
Predator.
Just in the scroll.
No cameos. No, I wasn't going to go there. And yes, so then next week we are filming another monster episode where we're talking about a very scary clown called Pennywise.
No.
Childhood memories galore.
No.
And then, like I say, we might have a live or might not have a live episode of the Goodwill and Graeme show. And then we will be back.
Don't forget, this Tuesday I will return to Twitch. So I will be continuing my journey through Uncharted 2, 6:30 p.m. BST this Tuesday, live on the Nerdy Up North Twitch channel. Speaking of the Nerdy Up North Twitch channel, if you look at the description below, guys, you will find a lot of very handsome and sexy links to everything that Nerdy Up North does. We do obviously the You in the Tube, which if you haven't liked this video and subscribed to our channel, please do it now. We also do Twitch, as I have just mentioned, where me, the lovely nerdy Jesus that is Jake, do some gaming, and Paul sometimes hops along as well to rage out.
I'm too competitive and angry, and like I say, I can't do stealth, as we found when I tried to play The Last of Us, and I was like, just go in and kick some boy in the nuts.
He does stealth with an F. That's what he does.
Yeah.
We also have a fantastic Instagram account. We have a Twitter account. We have the Tick and the Talk. We have a Discord, which is free of charge for you to join. The link is in the description below. The lovely Discord gang is in the chat right now, and we love each and every one of them equally. We also have a wonderful Facebook community of nearly 8,300 members. If you want to join us, the link is in the description below. We also have a Facebook page which has got over 14,000 followers so far.
It's close to 15 now, so we are trying to hit the 15,000 target. So if you've got any friends or family, get them to subscribe to the Facebook page as well.
Yep. And you can find me on Twitter at Goodwill None, where I post all things Trekkie all day, every day when I am actually able to, because I am also a very busy man. But...
and I'm gonna put Goodwill on the spot as well. He is going to try and run a competition in a bit as well to win a Nerdy Up North t-shirt, but it will be an extra large t-shirt, so deal with it.
The competition will be you will not only win a Nerdy Up North t-shirt in XL, which is of fine high quality, you will also win some rather sexy Nerdy Up North stickers, which I don't think I've got. Have you got some stickers on you?
Not on us.
Not on us. I think the rest are in my bag.
Fine, but you won't get any Pokemon cards in the eye, I promise you that.
Don't worry about it. Why did my door just open that?
Post will.
Strange, yeah. That's
Derek Cora coming back to get you.
Very, very
Goodwill loves Dick. But yeah.
Yeah, Mary loves Dick. What? Yes, so you can find me on Twitter at Goodwill None. The competition will be running this week, don't you worry about that. And if you do win the t-shirt, you have to show us and we can put it up on the Instagram.
Yes.
So, like I said, I will run that competition this week once I have got everything sorted out. I think that's all we have got to cover. Do you have anything else to promote, young sir?
Yes, thank you for having me on as well.
Oh, pish.
Even though I am the boss, but thank you for allowing me to grace the trekking world with my unsurpassed knowledge of all the Trek.
There is no such thing as unsurpassed knowledge. There is no such thing as a bad Trekker or a bad Trekkie. We are all learning, and we can all learn from each other because we are a Trek family. Hashtag no toxic Trek. All Trek is good Trek. Hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy. Sign the petition below, guys. I will be spamming that all this week as well. If there is nothing else from you, my dear, I think we are going to wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Guys, you have been absolutely wonderful tonight. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to everyone who was tuned in. Thank you to everyone who is watching this on a recording. Stay safe, live long and prosper, as I will always say. Go on.
And as Sammy always says, stay nerdy, guys.
Stay nerdy, guys. And as Synod is not here, I'm going to say it. Miles?
Miles? Miles?